And you don't have to have the perfect situation to do the perfect thing. But you're going to be challenged with people that are not doing the right thing. Your friends, even your family, are going to do stupid stuff. People are going to doubt you. No one can want success more than you.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. All is blessed on this end, and as always, we give God all the praise, honor, and glory for that. Today I have something a little bit different. Yes, we always get into the mafia stuff. You know, I know my people like that, and we'll do that. We continue to do that, give you great content in that regard. But today I have somebody very special. He and I met a couple of months back at a familiar person to you, Patrick Bet-David. I know you all know him. You've seen me on his show many, many times. But we had the pleasure and honor of meeting at that point in time. And today he happens to be out here in Southern California, and I convinced him to come and do a sit down with me. So his name is Phil Heath. Phil,
Yes,
my
sir.
pleasure, brother. Thank you so much for coming aboard. And before we get into it, I got to read something about Phil. So those of you that don't know him, you'll know him after I say this. Phil is an American IFBB professional bodybuilder. He is a 7-time Mr. Olympia winner, having won the competition every year from 2011 to 2017. His latest victory tied him with Arnold Schwarzenegger for the joint second number of all-time Mr. Olympia wins. His physique is considered one of the best and well-balanced bodybuilding physiques of all time. And I can tell you the truth, I've seen him, that's the truth. So, Phil, pleasure to have you.
Thank
really
you.
is.
Thank you for having me.
Well,
It's
hey.
awesome.
Listen, you're one thing I will say, you're a gentleman. It was really an honor and a pleasure to meet you in Southern Florida the last time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're familiar with Southern California. You've been out here many times.
Yes.
And it's just great to talk to you, you know. And I got to ask you this. My daughter was at one time, she was competing, you know, bodybuilding, and the routine that she had to go through, even on that level, I mean, it drove me crazy. The determination,
Yeah.
you know, the discipline that she had, the, you know, the diet that she had to keep, the work, everything was so structured and so disciplined. How do you do that?
Oh, well, you definitely have to have a lot of faith in God, because it's just not normal to be that intense 24/7. Everything you do has to be very intentional. Your intentions have to be on point. Your habits have to be on point. You have to remove all distractions. And you have to manage a lot of hard conversations with friends and family, because bodybuilders have to eat a certain way. So if your family loves a certain type of food, they're not going to understand that. And you know, a lot of cultures, even like for myself, why do you have to eat only chicken breasts? Or why do you only have to eat this? Why can't you have a little bit of pie? Like, it's just a little bit.
Right.
Why can't you have a beer? No, I can't. I have a bodybuilding show. This is really what I want to do. But the good thing is that you establish a new set of standards, and those standards only are there to promote you to a higher level of self. So we were talking about the discipline that is required. If you didn't have any, you're forced to do it. Otherwise, you won't look good. And bodybuilding is wild because of the fact that it's really the only sport where it's all on you. And the last thing you want to be doing is standing up on stage wearing a bikini or a little piece of posing trunks for a guy. You're basically naked up on stage, being adjudicated by complete strangers that wear a judging uniform. And now with social media and all the fans there, like, you definitely want to know when you're standing up there doing those quarter turns, those poses, you did everything in your power to put yourself in the best position to win.
But let me ask you this, does a little deviation, like a little bit of food, would that make that much of a difference? Because when I would tell my daughter, you know, just take this. Dad, I can't, you don't understand. Would that little deviation mean that much?
For first and second, yes.
Really?
Second and third, yes. But that's the mind game. It's like, well, you giving yourself permission for just a little bit, then it becomes a lot more. And then your standards get lower. And you're recognizing the fact that once you're on that stage, let's say you're not at your best, you're going to think about that little piece of pie, that 1 ounce shot of alcohol. That's the last thing you want to think about. You want to know that you gave it everything you got. You're going to live a false life if you're thinking that, oh yeah, I did everything in my power to win this one. Well, maybe you got away with it this show, but the next one, maybe not. And imposter syndrome runs rampant in our sport because a lot of people want to fake it till they make it. I've seen everybody, like the last week of a prep, which is normally the hardest part, they read something online and say, oh man, I'm going to eat this and I'm just going to look great. I'm going to have this cheat meal. But there's no method to their madness. So for me, it was always, I used to tell my coach, I don't even want that burger. But you have to eat it, Phil. Like, it's going to help, this and that. There's more calories, your body's going to burn it. I just don't want it. I structured my mind to where I would just eat the same meal, but just more of it. And I wouldn't even put like ketchup on stuff or, like in my contest preparation.
Wow.
But at least the proof was in my performance. And I can stand by that. So I can totally understand when people are driving their families nuts by being so strict. But I always remind the athletes that once the show is over, it is okay to slowly reintroduce some of those happier foods, a little bit more seasoning and stuff like that.
Right.
And live life, but within reason.
Well, let me ask you, for you to win it, is this an annual event when you win it 7
Yes.
times? So how much downtime did you have in between, again, competing again?
The first year I won was in 2011. After I won, I did go out, I partied a little bit, and went to nightclubs and did all that. It was more for my friends, really, than for myself. I had a photo shoot. I had 2 photo shoots the next day, plus a press conference. So when you're doing a photo shoot, you want to look pretty much the way you looked the previous night. Well, you won't if you go out partying too much. You won't if you eat, the whole pizza and drink way too many beers and stuff like that. You're just going to be bloated mess.
Right.
And those photos is what gets you paid with those sponsors. So you have to show a lot of discipline. And after my first Mr. Olympia win, I had to do those photo shoots for 2 straight days. So Sunday and Monday, I was doing photo shoots like twice a day. So like 4 total photo shoots, 1 press conference, my own content, and then had to travel to Mumbai, India to do it all over again. So I did a show the week after the Olympia.
Wow.
And I did it again in 2012. I went to New Delhi, India, and then in 2013, I flew to Arnold Schwarzenegger's show in Madrid, Spain. After that, I recognized that the Olympia preparation was so intense for me that I wasn't honoring myself and giving myself a break. So in 2014 on, I would just compete at that show, and then afterwards, I would do the 2 days of photo shoots, sometimes 3, and then go on like a vacation. And just try to do my best to relax, just relax. Hang out. Yeah, and a lot of the time, I was just a mute. I wouldn't talk to my fiance, just like, I was just trying to process everything that was going through my head, almost to the point where I needed to do another vacation just so I could actually be myself.
Right.
Because there's a lot that goes on, with the training for 4 straight months. You're training throughout the entire year, but 4 straight months of just hardcore diet and exercise, cardiovascular work. And then after the show, for me, I was always trying to process the next show. And it was very difficult to kind of just ease off the gas pedal and just take an exhale.
Well, that's it, Phil. Every, obviously, professional athlete has a routine, and they have to, sharpen themselves for their sport, football, baseball, whatever. But in your sport, this is all about you. It's about your body. I don't think there's any sport that requires the discipline, the commitment, and the mindset that bodybuilding has. Really, when you think about it, because everything is so structured within you from the minute you wake up until the minute you go back to sleep. So you got to be a special kind of person to be able to deal with that. So how did this start for you? Was this a lifelong dream? Is this something you always wanted? Or?
Absolutely not. It wasn't something that I dreamt of being. I always had an appreciation for muscles. Growing up, I was born in '79, so growing up in the '80s, it was a big deal. Like, You wanted to be strong. Like your idols back then were guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger, obviously, Hulk Hogan, Bo Jackson, Joe Montana, like Carl Lewis, like all, great athletes, Wayne Gretzky. Everybody was like, top level performance is key, top level performance is key. And I don't know about you, but like I remember watching old ESPN where they would have Flex Magazine workout. And they would have like Sean Ray and a few other guys, and then they would, early in the morning, they would have like some Pilates stuff with like Galad in the morning.
I remember that, yeah.
And then they'd have body shaping afterwards, where they'd have like the bodybuilder guy, the bikini babe, and then like a fitness guy. And they would train on the beach. So I remember watching that, and I was like, man, like I always appreciated like the muscles. And watching, Arnold in like those films, Predator, Commando, like all that, they're always ripped. Rocky, always buff. Drago, buff. It was like the pure era of man, like not like today. It's a lot different than today. We get it, yeah. But it was like man's man, be tough, and I just wanted that. So.
Did somebody convince you to go into bodybuilding?
Yeah, someone convinced me, but I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and I was actually always wanting to play basketball. So I played basketball all throughout high school, got a Division I scholarship to the University of Denver. I majored in IT and business. And when I realized that my hoop dreams were coming to an end, I was finishing, I took a 5th year of college to finish up my degrees, but I played 4 years. So during that 5th year, I didn't have anything to do. And I thought, well, I could, I guess, try to play basketball overseas after I graduate. But what's that going to do? That's just delaying the end. I'm not good enough. I need some reality. And then I realized, like, why am I going to college for? Where would I want to work? Oh, I could work at Microsoft, Boeing, something like that. Okay, well then why postpone the inevitable by trying to chase these dreams and hoops? Just there's more millionaires at these tech companies than there are in the NBA sometimes. So that was a hard pill to swallow, but luckily I was in an IT class and the guy sitting next to me was an amateur bodybuilder. He had pictures of these bodybuilders on his laptop. I definitely didn't have pictures of men on my laptop. I had a model by the name of Brooke Burke on my laptop. And so he was like, hey, I'm training at the student the student gym. You were always feel at the varsity weight room. And I went into his world, and I was just amazed. Everybody's in there, doing the cardio, doing the weights, and I thought, wow, like they're actually encouraging each other. And I started training with these guys. Next thing you know, I started getting some size on, getting some more muscles. And I always was pretty built growing up, but this was more intentional of actually maximizing like your chest and your back and your legs. For basketball, you didn't do that.
Well, let me ask you this, Phil. Let's say everybody had the drive, the determination, the discipline, the will. Can anybody get their body, not to necessarily be Mr. Olympia, but to a point where, like, let's say I had that determination. Mm-hmm. Do you have to have a certain body type, or could anybody's body be worked into a bodybuilder?
I definitely feel that everyone has the ability to grow some muscles, for sure. Whether you have the ecto, the endo, the mesomorph structure that we have read about. You got the guy that's very slender. You got the guy that's a little bit rotund. And then you have like the person in the middle that probably can gain muscle faster than anybody. You just have to train for that, your body type. Some people have to do more cardio than others. Some people have to eat more than others to get to their goal. But I definitely have seen all different body types grow pretty good muscles with the amount of hard work and dedication. It usually starts with just their limiting beliefs. They have these limiting beliefs that they can't do it. And it could be childhood trauma. A lot of people have emotional attachment to food. Some people stress eat. And once you can acknowledge those things, I think you put yourself in a better position to succeed. It does take a lot of work, and you definitely have to take it slow. You can't just go in there benching 500 pounds, right? You got to start where you're at, and your reality is maybe only do 95 pounds, but at least you're there. The first challenge is just acknowledging that you want to change. Second is creating some type of routine if you can. With the internet, you can definitely go pick a bodybuilding routine from any of us. It's not like what it was when I first came up. You literally had to go, there was nothing on the internet, and you literally had to go to the bookstore to go get a Flex Magazine Muscle and Fitness and sit there and just like, and you didn't have a phone like you could scan it, so you have to remember everything or just buy it and take it home. So I think anyone can gain muscle. I think anyone can lose fat. It just depends on them knowing what their current food intake is. And I laugh because a lot of people say, well, I eat really healthy. And then I say, well, show me your food diary, if you please. And it's terrible.
Really?
Yeah. Or they drink too much. Or they stay out too late. They're not getting ample amount of rest. So it's,
but they think it's,
they think so.
It's a good diet.
Yeah. And then when you show them like what a pro does, they get scared. Oh, I could never do that. I say, we're going to start with maybe the baby step, and it's just creating better structure with your daily routine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, were you very disciplined as a young boy?
Oh yeah, yeah. My parents they're old school, man. Like my mom's from Louisiana. My father, who I did not grow up with, was a hardcore Texan. My stepfather was from a place called Huntsville, Alabama, and I was raised in Seattle, but they all just like hard workers, didn't have to say much. They just come from that area. They didn't have to say it, they just did it. And the kids just had to watch, and kids see everything, right? Yeah. My mom would get up for work, but before she left, she was doing an hour of cardio. That's how I found out about the ESPN stuff, because she would have it on the television while she's working on the treadmill or riding a little bicycle. So she was always into this, and I thought, whoa, she's trying to lose weight. So, wow, like she's getting up early. I can hear her we had a small house. I was like, I can hear her on the treadmill. So now I'm up. So it taught me how to become a self-starter. And I remember hearing about Herschel Walker doing like push-ups and sit-ups every day. So I thought, well, I'm just going to get up when she's doing that. I'm just going to do that. So I learned how to get myself up early. And then I was a shoestring kid, with the key kid. They gave me a lot of responsibility, and I wanted it. I was raised as an only child, so I always wanted discipline. I always wanted, I wanted freedom, actually. I wanted independence, but that required a higher standard, so they could trust me. So I was always seeking their approval for standard, like, did I do it right? And yeah, it just stuck with me. I always knew being highly competitive was the only way for me to get what I wanted. I always knew that.
You know, Phil, it's so interesting that you say that, because in my experience, I did 8 years in prison, and I was around a lot of young men coming into the system, 19, 20, 21 years old, with tough sentences, mandatory minimum drug sentences. And, even before I was a Christian, I would counsel them, tell me what's going on in your life. I could have written the same script for every one of them. They came out of a broken home. They had no discipline in their home, normally no father figure. Mom was, trying to do her best, normally too young even to have the child, and she's trying to get her own way going. And then these poor young men, I have to say it that way, they end up, trying to get on the street just to try to survive and make something out of themselves. And, I had a very turbulent household because my father was always in trouble and, the whole organized crime thing. But we did have discipline and structure in the house, and that stayed with me and, enabled me at least to go on and succeed in some way. But, and it's interesting that, you had that same kind of influence in your household. And I say this all the time, these poor kids that don't have that, what do we expect from them?
Right.
And in a way, and I think you can relate to this, I feel almost responsible because we created the environment that they're in. This, kind of looseness that's going around. And but even in something, your profession, it was the discipline and the structure and the authority and the example that you saw in your house that kind of prepared you for what you were doing later on. And it's so vital. It's
Absolutely.
So vital.
But I think competition was king back in the late 70s and 80s. I think because, think about right now, the Olympics gets no media coverage. Back in the 80s, it was like the biggest thing.
Huge. Yeah.
I mean,
when was it that Muhammad Ali carried the torch? Do you remember what year that was?
I think was that Atlanta, 92?
Yeah, it was early.
No, 96,
something like that.
96
it was in the
Olympics.
90s.
Yeah, because 92 was in Barcelona, so the Dream Team. So yeah, 96. It was amazing.
Yeah,
and that goes into, you know, obviously the topic of American patriotism, like things stood for something.
Yeah.
Whitney Houston singing the national anthem,
right?
All these other things, like people actually cared, and the athletes. I mean, we're talking about like the miracle on ice, you know, when the U.S. hockey team beat the Soviet Union. Like it was like pride was king, and sports taught that you had to stand for something, and sports when they started doing, I think, the participation stuff. That's when I noticed a change, and I was a teenager seeing it.
When you say participation,
like meaning, I was raised in the '80s, so where at the end of the year, we'd have field day, and they find out who's the fastest kid in the school, and who could do these different drills and all this other stuff. Back then, they had the President's Council of Fitness test. You know, where they would have you do the shuttle run and, you know, the vertical leap and the flex arm hang and all these other things. They don't do that in school now.
Oh, so I see what you're saying.
So
Today
I'm saying, like,
everybody gets a prize.
Everybody gets a prize. They're not testing these kids physically.
Yes.
And they're thinking like, well, I don't know what they're thinking, but when you took that away, it was competition. And I'll tell you why. There would be kids that would do an event, like let's say they are not the fastest, but they get stretched the best. Or a random kid that you would call a nerd could do more pull-ups than you, and you didn't even know it, because maybe he was practicing this stuff in the basement of his dad's house. So, sports always brings out like competitive nature. It's what bonds us together, and I felt like when, even as an Olympia champion, they'll have 20 to 25 competitors that have qualified for the show, right? Top 3 get the medals, but everyone gets a participation medal. I can tell you right now, I've competed at that show, I want to say 12 or 13 times. I don't know where any of those participation medals are. I think I threw some of them in the trash. I think I gave them some of them away to fans. I don't really care about them.
Right.
Because to me, it was like, well, I know I participated at that.
So you got a medal just for being there?
Yeah, but I'm like, I already know I did.
Yeah.
I know I did. Like, what do I care? As a matter of fact, I don't even know where my second place Arnold Classic medal is. Because in my mind growing up, I remember running I used to run track and running like the 100 meters to 200 meters, 4x1 relays, doing like the AAU circuit, the Jesse Owens stuff, those events. When they would give you like this green ribbon for participating, I always threw it away because it didn't mean anything. Yeah. Any kid could get that. You always wanted a medal. Like top 3, because in my mind, I grew up, fortunately, watching the Olympics, World Championships, stuff like that.
You were glued to the television.
Right, oh my gosh.
Every event.
I'll probably never watch the Olympics again the way it's functioning right now. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's soft. Right now it's soft. We created a lot of soft people because, we're like, man, these kids, they go through so much and this and that. And then I think, personally, society just allowed standards to get lower so that everyone can compete.
You know, another name for sports is competition.
Yeah.
What do you think happened to get that mentality into people that everybody's got to have a medal, everybody's got to feel like they won something? When do you think that changed, Phil? Because, you know, I think about that often too, and it's making people soft. You just said it.
And I'm 42, so I'm trying to think, when did it really sink in? I think in the past 20 years. I think in the past 20 years for sure. The word inclusion comes to mind. Like, we just want to include everybody, but everybody doesn't belong.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. And you're giving these young adults, these young kids, oh my gosh, you're just programming them to think that we're all the same.
Yeah.
Yes, we bleed the same, get it, but we are not the same. And it doesn't teach good intentions with what you do. It doesn't teach proper habits. It doesn't teach how to be resilient. Why is it that they still do marathons of Rocky on network television? Because we get to feel something.
Right.
everybody gets jazzed up with like Rocky 4, even 3. Like that's a cool one too. And you have those moments of triumph when you're not teaching these kids that you can go through something and come out better on the other side, holding your fist in the air. Imagine being a kid. I'm imagining being a kid and never having that experience. Yeah. That would be a crappy life.
Yeah, it brings to mind, there was one day I was speaking at it was a high school, middle school, high school.
Mm-hmm.
And when I walked into the auditorium, there's a lot of kids, and on the wall it said, "You can be anything that you want to be, follow your dreams."
Yes.
And I turned around and I said, that's a big lie. And the principal was there, and I saw that she gave me a look, and I said, if I could have been what I wanted, center field for the New York Yankees.
Right.
The only problem was I was fairly good. I wasn't good enough to play center field.
Mm-hmm.
But I found my way in life, and I found what I was good at. So if you can't accomplish right now, you may dream to be, an Olympic athlete.
Right.
But it's just not your thing. That doesn't make you a failure.
No.
And I think that mentality got into people at one point in time and led them to believe that if a kid doesn't get a medal, he believes he's a failure. And that's just the wrong way to think.
Yeah, the kids started crying and they said, well, how can I satisfy this little Timmy?
Yeah.
Well, you get one too. They started this stuff with the gold stars in the classroom.
Yes.
Oh, you did a good thing, you get the gold star. Well, I want one too. And kids and then the parents are probably thinking, God, and then the school counselor's like thinking, we're gonna have some psychological messes if we don't make them feel that they are seen and heard and this and that and the other. It was just wrong.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to get your butt whipped.
Exactly.
You need to know what it feels like to not have anything and then get it.
Because you earned it.
Because you earned it.
Yeah.
And I know everything that I've earned has been so amazing that I've had a strong emotional experience with. And I don't think people that have been handed something will ever have a good emotional, positive experience. If anything, it taught them entitlement. And we all get upset with young adults because of entitlement issues. Well, who raised them? You gave them poor standards. You didn't hold them accountable. You didn't challenge your school system. See, I grew up in the inner city of Seattle. I'm not going to sit here and act like it was the roughest part of the country, but it wasn't easy either. My mom was she worked in cargo services for a company called Sealand, which later became Horizon Lines, got acquired by Matson. So she was a logistics company. It's a black woman from Louisiana, Zachary, Louisiana, moved to Seattle, started off as a clerk, ended up being an upper level management for a logistics company, working with longshoremen that definitely don't look like her, and they're definitely different. So she had to know how to communicate with longshoremen that are big burly dudes that don't want to hear nothing from a female, let alone a black woman. She had to manage herself and create higher standards so she could just be respected. She would not just work at 8 to 5. She would watch the last vessel on that ship, and she would stay there to make sure the job got finished. So I used to see that, and I'm like, wow, my mom really cares about this work. She never missed a day at work. My stepdad never missed a day at work. My biological father never missed a day at work. Guess I'm not missing a day at school then. So for me, I just had standards, man. And I think when you're not pushing for bigger standards, it's funny because kids nowadays, like parents get mad and say, oh, he's playing these video games and this and that. Well, if I was a parent, I'd say, is he any good? If you're going to play these video games, you better be the best at it. And just get that in their head.
Right.
And say, okay, because I like talking to kids too, right? So you're thinking, okay, if I was playing this Call of Duty game and I was beating your butt and I get on that headset and start chirping a little bit in the ear, what are you going to do? I'm going to find out where you're at next time. They use the words, I'm going to strategize, figure out different tactics. Oh, he's changing his approach. And then what? Then I'm going to find you this, that. What if I do it again and again and again? Are you going to quit? Never. I'll find a map on the internet, figure out where you're hiding, and So you're being extremely resourceful. But you're using all these attributes that can get you to the next level in your schoolwork and later on in business. But we as parents haven't probably like put that all together. We just say, turn the damn thing off.
Right.
You know, that's bad for you. It's like, no, this kid's probably really good at it. And maybe right now that's the only thing that they're good at.
I'll be honest with you. It wasn't my father that taught me how to be tough. It was my mother.
Yeah.
She didn't spare the rod, man. she was tough.
Yes.
You know, and she didn't stand for anything less than what she wanted out of me. And you know what? It drove me. I mean, you know, unfortunately, I don't know what happened with my mom. She kind of softened with my younger brothers and sisters. And as a result, they had problems. But with me, they always expected a certain standard. I'll never forget, I remember one time, I was a good student, not because I wanted to be, because I was afraid not to be, you know. So I did all my work.
Yeah.
But one day I came home and I got a B rather than an A, and my mother made it sound like I really went down a lot in my report card. And my father got so upset with me. I said, Dad, you know, my dad never hit me. Never hit me. My mom, yeah. But he went inside and he saw the report card and he started saying, well, the kid just one subject, he got a B instead of an A. But that's what she demanded, you know, and it drove me to do as, you know, the best that I possibly could do. I think these kids are losing that today.
Yeah, it definitely starts with the home training. We have to reestablish that the parents have full control of their household. These superintendents, these teachers, they don't have it all together. No. And it's the lack of parents actually fully participating in like their local PTSA programs and all this other stuff, creating like a real coalition, a tribe, who are basically saying like, look, this is a public school system, we pay taxes, you're gonna do what we need you to do.
Right.
My mom had a schedule at one point in time when she always participated in PTSA, always. She made sure when I was in middle school that she would be a teacher's assistant on Mondays.
Really?
So in 6th grade in middle school, you know, you have like science, math, you know, different classes, but then it was like she was helping out this teacher who taught history. She never taught in the same, or she never helped in the same class I was in. So it was interesting because that was probably the year I got in the most scuffles with kids because she was very strict. And we don't have the same last name, so they would say something mean about Miss Braxton, and I'm like, who? And then I'd say, that's my mom. You know, schoolyard.
Well, were you a pretty tough kid in school?
You had to be.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're gonna, it was back in the day where you get punched in the mouth, you go home crying, your dad's looking at you saying, well, you better go find them and never let that happen again.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like that then. So you just couldn't back down.
Right.
They would have rather had you get really whooped and say, did you get a lick in though, son? Like, did you at least get, I get it, the kid's tough, but like, did you get one in? I didn't. Well, you better go get another one in, otherwise there might be a belt coming, and you're like, well, that's intimidating. Like, you know, I mean, it was messed up, but it was more just like having some pride and not letting people just run you like that.
Yeah.
Standing up for yourself.
You say that today, and people, I would be more afraid to go home crying to face my parents than I would to take the beating.
Yes.
And people don't get that mentality, but it's a healthy mentality to have.
Well, you should be, because you should never feel like it's okay for someone to touch you.
Yeah.
Or to hurt you. If they're just making fun of you and being bullies and stuff, I mean, that's a whole nother thing. You have to know how to use your words right back. And conflict management is huge in today's society, right?
Right.
But when they look down upon it with kids get into it. They're confused. Or maybe there's something going on at home that we totally don't know about.
Right.
They're dealing with some traumas and stuff. Maybe some of these kids are homeless. You don't even know it.
Yeah.
Maybe they see the kid that has the nice lunchbox or whatever it is, or nice sneakers, and they're just jealous, man, and they take it out on some innocent kid. Doesn't make it right, but I know if that was my child, if I had a kid today, I would be teaching them definite basic fundamentals on how to defend themselves, definite emotional intelligence, and definitely knowing what hard labor is, because they would be ahead, because all these kids are freaking soft. But yeah, my mom, she would she would be in that classroom, man, and I asked her, I said, you know, the kids are teasing me, Mom, because you're here. She's like, I don't care. I'm like, but I care. I said, why are you here? She's like, because I want to know who these kids are that you call your friends. So it was more intimidating because those kids had to have a higher standard. And she'd be like, oh, you're friends with this kid? Yeah, he ain't coming over. So she was being like a gatekeeper and stuff, which was pretty cool when I think about it as an adult.
Oh, yeah.
She's very intentional. I wish more parents would actually do that now. And I bet you they could get clearance. I bet you, like, if a parent say, you know, I'm going to take I have PTO, like I have a personal day off. How about I just go help out one day and get clearance?
Teacher's aid or whatever.
Teacher's aid, you know, just teacher's aid. They do stuff, not just on field trips and stuff, but like in there. If out of 30 kids in the classroom, if one parent did that every week, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You would have a greater understanding of and those teachers would be held accountable too.
Sure.
And I think that's where it starts. You know, people don't like it, then you need to participate more in the classrooms. We're trying to reprogram our children to be soft, to just have low-level self-esteem, while everybody else around the world is licking their chops.
You know what, Phil? I strongly believe that every young man, 18 years old, should do 2 years in the military. Strongly believe, because they're not getting the discipline, the authority on the street.
Right.
You know, so many from broken homes. And that discipline, authority, accountability, you can't go on and succeed without having those principles. You just can't. You know, I always say this, who you are accountable to in your life is the path that you're going to follow on. You know, when I was on the street, I was accountable to, you know, my oath, my boss at that time. As a result, I was in a criminal lifestyle. Get out of the life, I became accountable to God first, my wife, my children, people that trust me. And you don't want to make a mistake, you want to do the right thing. So accountability with these young kids is important. And I think there's a great lack of that today. Great lack of discipline, respect for authority.
Yeah, big time.
Respect for authority.
Yes, sir.
You know, even if you don't like it, you got to respect it. It's like I tell these kids, I don't like everything I don't like every law that's out there.
Absolutely.
I hate most of them.
Yes.
But you have to respect them.
That's right.
You know?
Well, they for me growing up, I could tell you a million stories, but I'll tell you this. There was a corner called Rainier and Henderson in South Seattle. Still there. There's still bums on there. They're still there. Still crackheads on there. Still there. Still just
Same
people.
thing.
Same thing.
Wow.
Same thing. And the joke was, don't be the guy on Rainier and Henderson. So when you graduated high school, if you didn't go to college, ooh, man, you might be on that block. You might be at that 7-Eleven. You might be drinking, smoking, doing stupid stuff.
Right.
So I made it very intentional to, if I'm going to play sports, I want to go to the highest level. My parents didn't even think that I was probably going to, they knew I was going to go to college, but they didn't think I was going to play sports in college, right? So I remember my mom at 16 years old was like, you need to start taking these PSATs, SATs, do this stuff. I started applying to colleges at 17. And when I finally got a Division I scholarship, they took the money and that they were saving up and went on vacation to Mexico, right? Which was great, you know. And I realized, holy smokes, I just relieved some financial burden off of them, like tremendously.
Yeah.
So it was my ticket out of the hood. I was like, no, I'm not going to be here. From this day forward, I'm gone. Like, I'm not going to City College. I'm not going to University of Washington. I would have loved to play ball there, but it didn't work out. But I'm like, I get to go to a whole other place. I get to be whoever I want.
Right.
And I don't get to be told what to do by my parents. See, if I was still at home living, I'm under their roof, and I had that respect too, right? So it's so funny because I loved my independence. After college, my parents came to graduation with the intention of moving me back in with them.
Oh, really?
So they said, yeah, we got the U-Haul and all sorts of stuff. I said, yeah, I got one too. They're like, oh yeah, like we're ready to go. I said, no, I already got a lease down the street at an apartment complex. I got a roommate and everything. They're like, what? I said, with all due respect, I haven't lived at home since 18. I'm now 23 years old. Well, yeah, but I said, so what's your plan? You would move in with us, you'd find a job, you know, working at Boeing or whatever, but you wouldn't have the stress of having to pay a bunch of bills and this and that. You save your money. all that. And then when you get on your feet, you know, you move out, you get your place. I said, that's great, and I appreciate that. But you know what I did? I took all the money that you and my uncles and everybody else that sent for graduation, and I used that money to pay 6 months, actually it was like 8 months down on my lease. So no matter what happens,
You're good for 8 months.
I'm good for 8 months, and I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So I worked 2 jobs during that time. I just want to make something of myself. I don't care what job it is. I'm just going to do it. And you just had grit. You just became more resourceful with stuff, and you wanted independence. And the only way you're going to get it was to have a dream of wanting not that life, because you knew where that was headed. That was drugs and alcohol. That was nothing but low-level stuff.
Sure.
People get in trouble. You're going to get shot.
All right, Phil, I want my viewers to understand something. Being a 7-time Olympian is a big deal.
Yes.
Big deal in your world. It's a big deal just in life in general to compete and succeed at that level. Yet you seem very humble. You're a down-to-earth guy. And you know, one of the things that is so admirable to me is when I know somebody is special, has accomplished a lot, has authority, has a presence, and yet they're humble. And you have that. And what is it? I mean, is it part of your upbringing? Is it your faith? I mean, what keeps you grounded like that?
I think it's a combination of both, but I think most importantly it's just the standards I created early on in life. I just always wanted better. And I had really good coaches growing up, like real strong men that demanded excellence. My 7th grade gym teacher was a Super Bowl tight end for the Dallas Cowboys back in the day. Played with Staubach.
Big deal.
That's a big deal.
Yes, big deal.
So you can't make excuses in front of a person like that. He ended up becoming the assistant coach at my high school later on. How can I, you know what I mean? Like he's holding to a higher standard and he's just giving it to you straight. And I just loved my coaches. I had great coaches growing up. And there's a sense of accountability where you just don't want to let people who care about you down. Mm-hmm. And growing up, you know, a lot of the love that I received was very conditional, meaning like, if you do well, like I love you a little bit more, I'll notice you more type of thing. I think it wasn't maybe intentional. It's just, if he's going to be a bum, I mean, I'm not going to, you know, put much attention to him.
Sure.
I got my own life I'm trying to figure out.
Right.
So for me, it was always ingrained that I wanted better, and I wanted a triumphant moment in my life. I wanted to get out of Seattle and do something bigger. I went to Colorado. I had to do something bigger. It didn't work out the way I planned, but there was always a new way of pivoting into something better. I got into bodybuilding by the grace of God, and I was in a really bad place because I put my identity solely in the basketball. That when that time clock went to 000, I was just now a student, not an athlete anymore.
Right.
So what could I do to become an athlete again? Well, I could work on my physique. So I started doing that, started getting really good results, did a bodybuilding show. The problem with doing bodybuilding shows is that you have to have a higher level of self-accountability. You have to have a higher level of being resourceful because you may not have the money to go buy the best food, so you got to figure out what you can afford, right? You have to maybe work 2 jobs, and they're jobs, they're not careers.
Right.
You just have to have a lot of grit. And I recognized that early on, and I was willing to go through the mud. I was willing to go through those moments, and I didn't know what was going to come from it, of having a car, not having a car.
So you're grounded.
Yeah, you show more gratitude when you have something and it gets taken or it's lost or, you know, bad fortune happens. For me, it was just, my goal was so big in my mind, and I kept visualizing what it would look like, feel like. What would people say? Could I walk around with my chest held, you know, chest up? This slouching stuff. You know, I see other people that's so low level. That's not me. So anytime I got down, I remember my dream. And it wasn't like I didn't have success early on in life. So I was like, I can replicate the process. So I just kept replicating the process, and then it became, okay, well, you can lift these dumbbells, but can you do it better? Well, yeah. Well, what do you mean? Can I twist it this way so I can feel it better? Can I do it better where I can see? Can I chart everything so where I can see what makes me so great? Oh, because I'm making sure I know all the macros to my meals. I understand what meals work for me, where it may not work for you, but I'm creating my own blueprint. And it's just like in business, like you have to do that. When you're starting from scratch in a startup, it's hard because you got to figure it out on your own. You got to have a plan, and it's always going to change.
That's right.
But you have to be flexible, and you have to have a whole lot of faith. And I did that. So when I finally won the Olympia, it was like everything was worth it. Every Y in the road was worth it. All the pain was worth it.
It's worth it. Let me ask you this. You know, in prison, whenever I was out on the yard and I went into the weight room, I had a buddy and we used to work together. The talk was always, how much can you bench?
Yes, sir.
That was the standard. I got to ask you, how much could you bench at your
At my
your
peak,
highest?
it was 505. Yeah. I could pick up, our dumbbells went up to 170, so I could pick those up. And that, to me, that's even harder in a way, like picking up a dumbbell as a bar, as opposed to the barbell
Right.
stuff. The dumbbells are very unforgiving.
Yes.
Because they're oddly shaped, and you have to kick them up or have someone hand them to
Right.
you when you think you're going to rip your shoulder out.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's just very dangerous. But there's a sense of adrenaline that kicks in too. And you just, you start feeling like so powerful when you're lifting these weights. You feel like a demigod, like a superhero.
So you really get a charge out of it.
Oh,
huh?
yes. Like you get
Uh-huh.
into it and you want to replicate that process, meaning Michael Jordan can get in the zone. Can I do that in bodybuilding? Yes. But I have to ask myself, how does it feel to lift these weights? Anyone that has lifted weights, that's the beauty of the sport too, by the way, is that anyone can go to the gym and go lift weights. You can't go to the professional basketball facility and go do that. You'll never see them. You'll always see pro bodybuilders walking around your gyms or someone that's into fitness, and you can actually stop and stare. You can never stop and stare at LeBron James
Right.
and watch him practice. You can never stop and stare at a Tiger Woods because you can't get access to these greens. You can go to a typical gym and go learn something. So I always remained humble, wanting to learn. And I still do it today. I watch younger kids, I'm watching them like, and then they'll come up to me wanting a selfie and stuff, and I say, hey, by the way, when you're doing this, maybe you want to arch back a little bit, keep your chin up, do this. Hey, and what are you drinking? Oh, you might want to do that before you work out, not during.
If you went into the gym right now, what could you bench?
Oh gosh, probably now it'd probably be more like 405, not 500. I'm not doing that. You
405.
get older, and you're thinking, I don't have to impress anybody.
Yeah, but 405, that's impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, I just started working out in the past 6 months, and it's funny. I'm pushing myself, not because I expect to look like Mr. Olympia at any point, but you want to make that extra 5 pounds or 10 pounds. It's
Right.
just a good feeling. Hey, I did it today.
Great
that
benefits
physical-
though, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I feel so much better right now.
Yeah. It's better than people. I guess the way I look at it is your age, look at the average person, and you're not that average person.
Right.
Because of what you're doing, what you're feeding your mind, your body, and your spirit.
Exactly.
So I think it's awesome that you're doing that.
Yeah, well. Listen, I have no choice. I mean, we call the women in our family, from my wife and my daughters, are Franzese fitness freaks.
Yeah.
'Cause that's their lifestyle. That's all
Yeah.
they do. So, they're always watching what I eat. And so I said, you know what? I may as well get in the gym.
Yeah.
Because I'm tired of hearing it, but now I'm so grateful. Now they laugh at me because they said, Dad. And it was funny with me. I had to get mentally prepared for it. And I knew if I would start and I wasn't mentally ready, I wasn't going to do it. But then when I was mentally ready, I got in, and that was it. And now it's like if I miss the gym, I feel bad. Going to the United Kingdom, I said, hey, I got to have a gym.
Yes.
That's it. It's got to be there. I got to be able to work out every day because I don't want to lose what I started now.
They got gyms there.
Yeah.
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 They
They
got
seem
some cool
pretty
gyms
good.
there.
Yeah, they look good. So.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Let me ask you this: what message do you have for our young people today? Because you're a model of success in so many ways. Parents that just really cared and put you on the right track. You had that determination. You had that discipline. You had a goal. You're, I'm sure, a normal young man. No question about that. We all have our things, but you're a prime example of how you could just really succeed in this country. What would you tell these youngsters today? I'm sure you speak to many of them.
Yeah, mainly, no one can want success more than you. So when you're a kid, you know, your parents ride you because they want it more than you. You know, did you go to school? Did you learn? Did you do this? Did you do that? Stop bothering me, Mom. Like, yeah, I did it. Well, at some point in time, you got to prove to them that you can handle it by raising your standards so then they can trust you to do it on your own. So no one should want success more than you. If you say you want to be straight A student, then they shouldn't have to ride you at all. Because, I mean, I would look at people growing up and in competition, I know that they're going to fail because they have to be told twice. You should be told once. Because you're paying attention with great passion. So kids have to really, really own who they are currently and imagine who they want to be, and then ask themselves, are they doing what's necessary to meet that person? The answer is no. But the good thing is that you can figure out some fundamentals. One, most importantly, you got to eliminate bad habits. So if you're not an early riser, ask yourself why. Why not be an early riser? You can get a lot of stuff done. Are you not organized? Are you always late? Do you make excuses? And if you make excuses, 3 more fingers are pointing back at yourself. So why point at anything? And you really need to know that the world doesn't owe you anything. It just doesn't. It's not the way it works. The way people survive and actually thrive are the ones who know that it's going to get really ugly, but that they have the determination to get through it. And that's where the pot of gold is. So you want the money, you want the cool stuff, you want all that flash, it is available to you. And you don't have to have the perfect situation to do the perfect thing. But you're going to be challenged with people that are not doing the right thing. Your friends, even your family, are going to do stupid stuff. People are going to doubt you. And for kids especially, oh my gosh, those same bullies are the ones that know your potential the most. They wouldn't mess with you unless they knew it. They could see it. It's so it's very, I think they have almost a prophetic ability to know this person got something I don't. I don't like, my demons don't like that. So I'm going to ruin his day because I'm too scared to handle with my own problems and focus on my race. So you can't let anyone get you off track. You got to have those blinders on and just say, look, thank you, Lord. Appreciate everything you've given me. You got to give thanks always. If you have that, that's the greatest superpower you could ever have. And just always maintain a level of integrity, prayer, and belief.
You young ones, I hope you're paying attention to that. That's a 7-time Mr. Olympia saying that to you. Question, in the 7 competitions where you won, who was the toughest to beat, if that's the right terminology?
Myself. Because the year prior I probably should have won in 2010, but I didn't exude the proper confidence to stand there like the champion. I did the work like the champion. My physique looked really, really good, but my body posture was very, very poor. And maybe I wouldn't have won either way, but I knew I could have. That was the one component. I had to beat myself. I could not be insecure. I had to be secure with who I wanted to become, because heavy is the head that wears the crown. And you have to accept that. Just like these kids, why can't you get A grades all the time?
Right.
Oh man, had a bad day. No, not when you say you want to be the champion. So I said I want to be the champion, and I wasn't doing the work even internally here, in the soul and spirit. So God's not going to reward that. So I'm like, no, you need to work on that. Once you work on that, though, you're going to be 10 times better, and that's what I did. Once I owned that part about myself, I dominated the industry, and I became an iconic figure with Arnold, and then also bodybuilder of the decade. So I'm on the Mount Rushmore because I beat myself.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, what kind of guy is he?
Oh man, he's a jokester.
Is he really?
Yes, he's always been nice to me. He's always given me his ear, and he's given me some really good nuggets of wisdom.
Great.
But yeah, he's definitely our most iconic figure in our sport, and I'm just thankful that he still puts on his event in the Arnold Classic. But yeah, You know, he's not perfect. We all know that. And we now hold him accountable for some of the things that are going on in the world too, but we know that his intentions aren't bad. His intentions are good, especially with fitness. He's definitely the person that when he says, go fight, win, people move.
Right. Well, there you heard it. Let me tell you, it's not too often that anybody can excel 7 times, be the absolute best in your sport and competition like Phil is. So when you're sitting with somebody like you, Phil, it's really an accomplishment and a great achievement, and people should look up to that just for the hard work and determination that you put behind it. So, Phil, you've accomplished everything. You're so active now. You're traveling all around the world. You're doing all these wonderful things. What's next? Anything like big and exciting, or you're just moving along at a good pace?
Definitely lining up a lot of dominoes right now. Doing a lot of public speaking, and also getting ready to launch my new documentary, Breaking Olympia, which is directed by Brett Harvey and produced by Adam Scorgi of Scorgi Productions. Actually, it's co-produced by a guy named Dwayne Johnson and Danny Garcia of Seven Bucks Productions. So we'll be giving out more details later this fall, but I would say it's better than Pumping Iron.
That's
So
exciting.
anyone that has watched Pumping Iron or just a fan of bodybuilding, a fan of me, you're going to be in for a treat. You have myself, Kai Green, Dwayne Johnson's actually in it. Tons of different bodybuilders in there, telling the stories about triumph, and I get to walk you through my entire life.
That's exciting, Phil.
Yes.
I know Pumping Iron was huge at the time.
Yeah, so I'm excited.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's great. We've been working on it for 4 years now, and you know, with the pandemic, it was really difficult, but I'm very thankful that I get a chance to share that with the world. And you know, outside of that, a lot of new things coming out, and nutrition and clothing and all those things, courses. So you got to stay tuned. I'm really excited to share it with you.
Well, I'm going to be watching and paying attention. Anything in the fitness area I'm interested in. We have something in common. You have a documentary. I have a TV series coming out. So
Oh, perfect.
maybe it'll be around the same time.
Right
we'll
on.
both get to enjoy it. But
Perfect.
that's great.
Thank you.
Great. I appreciate very much knowing you, speaking with you.
Yeah.
I don't want to fight with you.
No.
That's for sure, because you look like you're in great shape, you know, as always. But it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
my
Thank
friend.
you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that's it. Again, how often can you sit with somebody that's been at the top of their sport 7 times in a row? I mean, that's even more of an accomplishment. And there's so much work that gets behind it. But I really hope you listened and you paid attention to what Phil had to say. Great parents that drove him, the discipline, the determination, the faith that he had, the belief in himself, the way he drove himself. You know, in this country, you can accomplish that if you work hard, you got your mind in the right place, and you're committed, and you just do the right thing, and that's how you succeed. You know, we all have an opportunity to do that, and quite often when we don't, it's really on us. You know, if you point fingers, you blame other people, you know, you never get satisfaction by blaming someone else. All it is that you're trying to make an excuse for your failure, and that's not the way to do it. You work harder, and maybe the next time you win. So that's it for today. How do I always leave you? Same way. Be safe. Ladies, I say it all the time. Know your surroundings. Be observant. You walk out into a parking lot. Unfortunately, that's what we got to be aware of today. Be safe. Be healthy. I just had one of the most healthiest guys you're ever going to see on here, and he spoke about, you know, diet and discipline and taking care of yourself. It's so important. Be safe. Be healthy. I always say this sincerely because I mean it from the bottom of my heart. God bless every single one of you. Thank you for supporting us here on this channel. We appreciate it. We're on a drive to 1 million, so hopefully you'll help us get there. Be safe, be healthy. God bless. And yes, God willing, I'll see you next time. Take care.